Please.
Sure. So I'm really keen to just ask you more about the need not to change others. So a quick preface to that. I love the principle of accepting other people as they are. For people that I don't agree with their views or stance or whatever, to be discerning around who I am with and spend my time with. But I really struggle when I see hypocrisy, incongruencies, deprecation. I've struggled with that, and yeah, I love the principle of acceptance. I love the principle not to need to change others, but I'd love to hear from you how to put that into action and where to find that line between what I feel is important about making a stand for what is important.
Okay, I hear you.
And making a positive impact in the world and not being complicit to what I see as degrading behaviours, etc.
How to take the principle of reclaiming blame and projection and being super wise and mindful of not needing or hoping to craft people into one's own desired self-image or evolution of presence. And then the areas of being outraged by the inhumanities of women and men. And where is that incredible freeway between the two? Not a fine line.
It is the wisdom,
Yeah. Well, I would say Kylie, my response to that is a lifelong journey of attentiveness to the confluence of those two issues. Developing the strength to see more clearly is more important than getting it right or wrong. That's all.
I love what you said before in terms of activism around.
So I would.
When you made a point earlier about.
No, don't go away yet. Don't go away yet.
About activism and
well,
showing people what they don't see.
Yeah, that I don't want to really get into a discussion about it because it's too vast, but I want to address what you brought up and really make that point clear because it's important for a lot of people, including you and including me, is the tendency is to see a wrong and want to right it. That's clear. That's a very good thing. You're seeing clearly a wrong on an ethical basis, by and large. It's the issue of effectiveness that becomes the question. And skillfulness in being effective, and timing in being skillful and effective. And in how do I understand what is skillful and excessive? What's the right time and the wrong time? What's the right word and the wrong words? What's the right motivation and the wrong motivation? Those kind of things. What's the most skillful means? What's an unskillful means? Just please hold. So those considerations, I think, are more important than am I getting it right or wrong? Like, let me dive into being a better athlete than winning the game. Let me understand the process of meditation than becoming enlightened. So that's number one. Be realistic in what's most important to understand and answer to the question. Trial and error is always there. How many rejections do we need? How many times do we need to be spit on and thrown out of the house? And how many times do we need to be right? How many times do we need to go to a therapist and cathart about she didn't fulfill my needs in the way that she promised? It's endless, the machinations of so-called shadow, projection, and blame, and feeling justified about it. You know, there's so many ways to rearrange the living room furniture to conform to your fear. So I would just really ask myself, when do I want to call off the war? And really establish not a turning away from complexity, but a reinventing of the skillfulness of approach. And that becomes a very interesting issue for me. And it comes right back to the simple last part of the answer for me is skillfulness and effectiveness. How would I like to be treated when I'm in a state of transgression? And one, I don't want to be lied to, so please don't shy away from being intimate with me. It's a very common way that couples and relationships and friends stay in some semblance of mediocrity together. So stay with me, please. That's the kind of begging of the other when I'm being a little bit of a jerk or not accountable or whatever I do to make it difficult for you. Stay with me. And ultimately what I would really like, because I really believe in my heart, I'm inspired by ethical and spiritual intelligence. I'd like to see you just rock out in this new erotic awakening and go like, fuck. She is so amazingly skillful in helping me understand what I didn't see. That's why I'm in love with her. I would like that outcome. Fair enough? Who wouldn't want a relationship or a partnership where that wasn't the outcome? We want it in our friendships, we want it in our teacher-student roles, we want it in our coaching sessions, we want it in life, we want it in friends, we want it even just in momentary 20-minute conversations at any day or minute during this retreat with people. We want outcomes that go, you know, I'm sorry that I exceeded the intimacy of our relationship. I felt that I was blaming you. Thank you for the courage to be honest with me. I really want to break bread with you and drink wine with you and bond more fully with you. So it's not a transgression, but again, even though we didn't get it right, we made better on it than being right. The evolution of the elevation of beautiful states of mind. Gradations, nuance. I use these words metaphorically and literally. Erotic poetry. If someone were to blame me with an erotic poem, it would be like, okay, let me make that transgression again. I mean, that's sort of the invitation with our faults being exposed to us by lovers, friends, and acquaintances. So it's just, when it comes to things outside of my circle of intimacies, I just don't give a shit anymore. I'm done. You work it out. I can't confront the White House. I mean, my thing with him is like put the most heroic dose of entheogen in a glass of wine for the guy. You know? Assassination by awakening. But other than that, no one's paying attention. I could be speaking to a billboard in Hollywood and it would be better. No one's paying attention. You've got a couple of hundred people that watch a Facebook Live for free, 50, 40, 30 people that come out here in beautiful Ubud. Who's paying attention? Probably on Monday or Wednesday of next week, it's like, who? What would you do last week? I don't have much of an impact on a circle beyond, really just a little bit beyond me. So I've reclaimed a lot of the idea of activism. I don't hang with people who outrage me. It's like the one strike and you're out rule for me. It's not like I'll reject you, but I just don't want to invite that kind of complexity in my life today. I just don't have it. If we're together and we're more open and intimate and you fail the promise of commitment to certain fidelities, I'm not going to blame you more than just fucking rip your head off. And then I'm gone. Don't fuck with me. So I think it's a very good attitude in that process of awakening. Not only know your boundaries, but know where you can fucking stand up and take a stand, where accountability and justice and truth get the rawness of Kylie. I'd want to know that in our relationship, if I did something that was really aberrant, that you have the right to get a little bit upset with me. But, you know, hold back, girl, that, you know, listen, did you really mean it? Nope, I didn't. Nope, I didn't mean it. Will you do it again? Nope. Hold me accountable, but, you know, be gentle. Do the Gandhian dance. Be the peace that you seek. I think that's the best thing to be effective. When someone is taking excessive food at a table, you know, I watch this in Burma. You'll go there when you come to the monastery. You sit at round tables on the floor. There's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different bowls of curry, and there's not enough for everyone at the table. And so what happens, you eat in seniority of age. And so if you're younger than I am at a table, it doesn't mean that I have the right to take more of the cauliflower curry so that 5 other people at my table, maybe they get a little, the other 3 don't get any. And you see this happen all the time. In pure silence, to be mindful with food given to you, where you see someone freeze in anger. They go, and then they start looking right up at you and just stare with like 6 months of silent meditation power. And just look at them. The other person just doesn't even put their head up. I've seen fights in monastery more vicious in the streets of LA because people build up this resentment of not owning their projection and blame and justifying the wrongness that that person took more fucking chicken at lunch than they should ever do it. I'm tired of it. And they break out of this coma of mindful intelligence and go, God damn you fucker. You hear it like outbursts like that. So you're in good company, Kylie. You know, so reaffirming our conviction in mindful intelligence reclamation is a very necessary thing to do it breath by breath. To watch building up of the calcification of spiritual transformational practices as shadow. Resurrect, evolve, co-craft, release. As we exhale, we breathe in fresh oxygen. So know who you can be intimate with, and know who you can just simply be aware of, and know who to avoid. It's not just to own everything, but there are places where intimacy is really agreed upon, and there are places where it's sort of emerging, and there are places where it's not even on the table. I don't fight the battles with not on the table. And most of the world to me is not on the table today. So that's my response.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, for me, I know I just need to check with my motivation sometimes as well. Like, what is my motivation to speak up now? Is it pure? You know, and I like what you brought to the table and am I going to be effective in this situation as well? And then the skillful way in which, you know, if I do choose to act, how I can skillfully bring my patients.
Another thing about motivation in this area is if you're lucky to have the ability to associate with the wise. It's sort of you get to spiritually apprentice, so to speak, with really interesting people. The role of mentoring today is more active than teaching, but it's very rare to find someone you can mentor with. I mean, there are people within your psychological, spiritual dimension that may or may not be either actively available to you, or you can at least see them digitally or on paper. Be watchful of developmental expectations. But one of the greatest gifts that I see in someone is their skill in knowing how to acquaint themselves with very compelling people. And compelling people are very rare to find. I don't know about you, but I find it unthinkably rare to find, and you may ask, what is a compelling person? I'm down with that. Someone you really feel inspired by and you can learn from. And you like the way that they move and dress and think and use language, their dedication to values. And to me, I absorb so much learning by being in the vicinity of these people. So, others who had issues or questions that you wanted to bring up?
You just nailed it.
And yeah, same for you? Okay, cool. Nina, take your time, please.
So we come to the meditative state, and we come to the retreat, we do meditation, we do yoga, we find ourselves in a good position, we're really strong, we're clear, we come to that point of, wow, I did it. And for me especially, like one of the parameters is equanimity.
Equanimity?
Yes.
Yeah, the parameters, equanimity, yeah.
Especially in difficult situations. Like for me, I have 2 kids with then they are fighting, they were screaming, they are loud, and you come back from the meditation, you're really like this, and 2 seconds later, it's away. It's not here. It's like how to keep this state
Beautiful.
longer in
Right.
situations. For
Right.
me, it's my kids.
Right.
I don't know.
So, help me to get it right. Help me if I didn't. So we come to the retreat and we evolve these beautiful states of mind. I feel more quiescent, more calm, more beautiful, more peaceful, more equanimous, the parami of upekkha. And then I go home with my children and my life as I left it, and it's super challenging. How to maintain higher fidelity states of mind in the face of this complexity. Add to our list of parami the vocation of evolving courage, patience, determination, resolve, metta, loving kindness. Where I go in this, it's not so much just to remind myself of the emotion or the parami or the state, but the choice that I've made that satisfies my deeper soul's sense of meaning. You, Nina, have chosen to be married. You chose to embrace being a mother. You have a family. My point is, understanding and not absconding from our choices. Living more fully in the commitment to the choice. It's that when we breach that commitment and begin to think of the greener grass, or I would prefer to be in that state, the shadow of that is to want to escape and compare. And then the deeper shadow is to blame and to potentially berate. Why are you so fill in the blank? Why don't you support me in how come I'm doing this when it's no longer working in the way that I want? So I go back into, I've made this choice. I'm going to rise to the spiritual occasion and fulfill. Oh, Ananda, no. I would like to give both my eyes. One could say, wow, you're advocating unbelievable denigration of self for the betterment of others. I'm saying that there's some vocation in our souls, figuratively speaking, where we find meaning. And I'm not saying that it's here or there. It could be a composite of things, but I would bring my womanness, my commitment to where and why am I here. And sometimes, like when I was with my daughter a lot, when I was living more in proximity to her in Vancouver, I made a point, because I was a single dad and I wasn't the custodial parent, that when she came to visit me at my house, it was all her time. And so I dedicated myself, proudly can say this to you, Nina, and I could learn a lot from you and how you've done it. And you could argue that, well, you only did it part-time, but it's really, really hard. Part-time isn't because you get less time, it's because you get less time. And so it's so precious that it's so painful to separate. My point. So I had to really drop in. You know, we're coloring now a rabbit for the 700th time this week. And I'm going to do it right with you, girl. We're going to make the same Lego blocks and just knock them down again. Or hear the same out-of-tune song on the ukulele, whatever. I loved it. And you know, I'm proud today to say I make choices to be with people I want to be with. And I'm saying things that I want to say, and I'm listening because I care about it. And those who know me know that I won't stay if I don't. And I encourage you to do the same. So be there or don't be there. If you're going to be there, increase it beyond 60 to 80 to 90. And within that, where is the retreat in the dynamic? Develop, take refuge. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami. You'll hear this in Burma all the time. Dhammang saranang gacchami. I take refuge in the principles of awakening. My refuge in my marriage is to yoga as the application of resilience and patience and beauty and conviction and compassion and love and freedom and the transmission of my beauty with my children and my context. I'm breathing in the oxygen of my parami. If we stay in that, we're like that young girl who's blind in Iran and someone's talking to her in her ear, "You're beautiful, young girl. You're not blind. You are blind, but you really can see. You're beautiful." Hear those thoughts of wanting to be dead as just thoughts that come through the sky of your mind. Stay convicted. Became this brilliant, educated person who writes a memoir on being the first graduate of Tehran University. You know, you're leaving a legacy of beauty and commitment and conviction to your family, to your children, to me. Draw in greater resources outside of your existing family and tribe that really, truly get you. People who you want now are new friends. Look around. I'm in your corner. I could not avoid you. You're too amazing. Whatever I can do to support you in that process by text or Skype or FaceTime, you know, you need to cry or talk or share, I'll hear, I'll listen. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to reach out to new people. Strengthen those fibers of the heart. But meaning is my answer here. Where are you? Why did you make this choice? And recommit to that choice as challenging. And the last thing, and I say this without being overly personal, is, and I'll say it indirectly then, I can't be who I am without being nurtured. I feel very fulfilling here. It's tired in a good way. I'm a little bit afraid of this ending, to be very, quite frankly. I have good things that are going on, but I get attached, and I feel very honorable about that attachment, by way of saying that not just friends, but where you can be fulfilled, so that the outside gives you the inside, and you have the aptitude not to reject the outside, have boundaries with the outside, but like I'm really nurtured by certain people, but I'm very careful when I call upon them. But I'm really excited by my friends. But there are a few places where I really get touched. And in meeting a lot of new people, I'm realizing that there's no need to have a limit there. It's just a question of keep opening and being nurtured by that. And that allows me to deal with more difficult things. And there's a lot of difficult things in my life. So by way of saying, make a note where you can be anointed into higher elevation, nurturing, so that your flower metaphor, this is light, this is soil, but where's the light? And really beam in through you those very rare sources of light. I think that's a very, very important place of gathering strength in our life. There's so much stoicism, especially for men, that we have to do it more and more on our own. Women are very good about communing in their hearts. And having lost 5 men in my life, I'm finding greater sources of the outside and taking risk to be more open to that, to be more fulfilled in natural, simple ways, rather than putting all my heart into the hoped for twin flame. So, a lot of words for something I would have said more personally to you if we were private, but I'll leave it at that. Nick?
Is now a good time to discuss Facebook group because I think that supports what you're saying, because we can have a Facebook group where we can support each other in private, in a space of this kind of spirituality.
We can, but ironically, Josh started one actually just this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so maybe you and Josh could get together and do that. You're bringing up the issue of a Facebook group so that people who have come to this...
when Nina's feeling exasperated, she can go on
Yeah.
and say, my kids are really annoying me, you know.
That would be really
I can
beautiful,
say,
yeah.
my kids are annoying me as
So,
well.
in other words, Nick and Josh have both suggested there be a World Dharma Mindful Intelligence Facebook group for people to connect, should you wish, and grow that circle of Sangha or community. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe would you talk to Josh and vice versa and both do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So maybe during lunch or after the day,
Yeah.
that could be
well,
done.
I wanted to just announce it at the end of both sessions,
Yeah.
so people can just have information on it. I mean, it is on Facebook. You can just search it. World Dharma Community with Alan Clements is the group name right now.
So a Facebook group, World Dharma with Alan Clements.
Yeah.
Just go there and
The
click.
groups, search it. You can add yourself in, and then also I was gonna see like if people are not online, like if you're not on Facebook, we can also do like a WhatsApp like group chat. And if you want to be in on that, just come see me, and I'll get your information, and we'll create a.
Yeah, yeah, sure, thank you. Okay, cool. Duncan?
Can I also just add, if people join a group, a lot of people get annoyed by notifications. It's easy to stay in a group, switch off notifications, and once a month, once a week, go back and look in your own time. Just a lot of people get overwhelmed by WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, just so that they know that it can be switched.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to reword that. I would just go back to Josh and Nick and the World Dharma, Alan Clements Facebook group. Primarily, if you're interested, that would be wonderful. So let's move on to more personal things. Anything at all that might be important to you? If you'd like me to talk about issues, I've got some things I could talk about. Margaret, take your time.
Yeah.
Just concise if you would, and clear.
It's just on the back of what you were saying, because you brought up a particular issue. And, I've been hearing you dissing shadow for the last few days. And for me, when I'm up, because I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, and coming out of beautiful spaces like this and going home to situations, and I recognize I have to go, okay, so that's my impatience. I was brought up in a family where you're too loud, or children are seen and not heard. And even to just identify that, so that I can go, that's connected to that, breathe, it's a fragmented part, it's okay. You don't have to delve into it if you don't want to, but just even recognizing, I had to push that down to be a good girl. I had to disown that part of me. So therefore, I'm willing to open it up and allow the shame to come up and feel it. And then I feel freedom, because there's nothing hidden anymore. So it's just, I'm just concerned that, going to beautiful states, when it's still there, the feelings are still there, I want to kill you. Jesus, I've just come from a meditation, you're in my face, and
So she's got a business card for psychotherapy if you want to go, in other words.
But no, this
Leave
is
it at that.
psychotherapy, this is self.
This is psychotherapy in my book.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm sharing here.
Yeah. Well,
But I hear that, and if you want to pursue that, that's beautiful.
yeah. Psychotherapy.
Nor am I
for me is
dissing,
duality.
nor am I dissing shadow. I don't agree with that word at all.
Okay.
Dissing is not in my vocabulary.
Right. Psychotherapy for me was looking at both sides of duality and then finding a balance and still never.
So may I ask what the question is?
No, it was just in relation to what you were saying.
Okay,
like,
maybe-
again.
Maybe at lunch you could talk with her about it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Questions at all that might be important to you?
I don't really know how to see it, but it's more about how to strengthen his voice, the inner voice, the language of my heart, and how to listen it. I mean, like when I'm in calm mood, I can feel my heart pretty good, and I'm really connected with it. But especially in situations where I'm anxious or in fear, or many distractions and influences, even negative influences, are kind of pulling me away, and I move up into the head, and I'm totally cut off, and I cannot listen to me, my inner self, my inner voice anymore, and then I go to the wrong places. Even as I said, I wanted to be here the whole week, but so many things happened, and right now I get sad about it, and it's like, how can I strengthen that self-trust, that self-confidence, this being really connected and having access to my heart, which is actually I want to get guided by.
See, that's a very interesting thing for me, is how to increase the passion, the conviction, the dedication for transformational wisdom on the terms of the meaning of Dhamma. That is where the refuge is for me. And if you hear that and you want to learn that yoga, you go to places where they cultivate it and practice it so you can immerse yourself in it. A dedication to full immersion in mindful intelligence as an applied experience, day to day in all postures, all states, all contexts. This retreat was offered for 6 days to do that. Burma is another experience for that. And let me just repeat, like some of the things that I would really encourage people to take home to strengthen what is the meaning of making the Dhamma or the Dharma the touchstone of my life. How to increase the fire, the passion, the hunger for that actualization. Requires being near people who are really turned on more and more. So it could be who you associate with. It could be examining priorities. It could be that you haven't suffered enough yet, the fate of ill choices or compromises, or perhaps the evaluation of things that are mediocrity. And then all of a sudden you come to that place in life, like 1 year ago, I was at the end of my ropes. I made a dedicated effort. This is it, Alan. You discover the unseen self. So just to reiterate, if you've got time, come to Burma. There you can have 10 days of intense immersion where you do nothing other than practice the inner Dharma yoga of world Dharma, mindful intelligence. What do those things mean? The vocation of making good on the promise of dana, sila, bhavana as the touchstones of our integrity. The more we become Dharma literate with the meaning of those as an applied experience, the more likely we are to practice yoga out of the studio. Until then, one needs to go to a studio, very likely, or to a mat, and do asana over and over and over again until you begin to see that you take your breath everywhere you go, not just in the studio. You're with me, right? You're listening? Okay, good. So the key points here is, what is the felt meaning of dana, generosity, sila, ethical intelligence, honesty, non-harm, wise sexual relationships, the use of refraining from intoxicating substances, not to take things that aren't given to you, how to embody these living ethical intelligences, and bhavana. What is the meaning, the felt meaning? No one has to communicate to you or to me or to anyone here that we're embodied, that we're thinking and feeling, and that we're breathing. It's immediate, it's true, it's real, it's ongoing until we die. But when we come to the confusions of the heart on how to consciously inhabit consciousness, how to consciously inhabit the body and consciousness for the betterment of our virtues, our wisdom and our freedom, there's ambiguity there because we were never trained in Dharma literacy. I wasn't trained in yoga until I was 17. But now I have more fluency in that. The same thing with mindful intelligence. I have more comfort in it. So it's a developmental training to understand the felt meaning of dana, sila, and bhavana, beautiful states of mind. Similarly to the way that I breathe. Why wait? I have to do it by myself. It's here and now. Non-thinking about what I should and shouldn't do, and bring up the emotionality of patience, listening, coherence, resilience, determination, kindness, compassion. Who among us can call upon by will self-love? People bargain all the time and call it something other than Dharma intelligence. And really all I'm pointing to here is SOCs, states of consciousness. There's so many other disciplines, but for me I want to know the ABCs of states of consciousness. I want to know their characteristics, I want to know their feelings, their textures, the ways that I compromise them, the way that I can inhabit them as I do my lungs. I want to know the oxygen that evolves self-respect. I want to know the oxygen at the end of the day that allows me to smile in dignity that I gave the day in the relationships of my life the absolute best. And until I feel more of that, I will not be satisfied that I didn't do all that I could do that day. I want to surround my people and myself with those people equally dedicated to that. Yes, there are examples of compromises to that. It's not easy to find people that dedicated. So those are the ways that I go about it. Understanding the meaning of dana, generosity, sila, ethical intelligence, and bhavana, the felt cultivation of the 10 paramis as a living, breathing experience. And then it evaporates proportionately doubt, restlessness, confusion, uncertainty, compromise. I think all the questions I hear are the absence of understanding more and more that confusion, doubt, and restlessness are all proportionate to the absence of the cultivation of dana, sila, bhavana, or mindful intelligence. That's all. Simple as that is, I think it's a lifelong journey. It's doable. I think it happens very rapidly for people. When they hear this, they go, oh wow, I'm going to fight this with something. But by and large, I want to cultivate inner strength and solidarity to my values and principles. I want to be more upright, more truthful, more honest. I want to relax the fear. Relax the grasping. I want to feel more comfortable in my skin. And so the more uncomfortable I've become with compromise, and the more that I feel that, I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, that I didn't live my virtue, my strength, my voice, I get really fucking antsy. And so I ask, like, what inside of you is willing to live, not marginalize it, but where could I listen to these cacophony of different voices and carpe diem upon a voice and a vocation and an action and manifest? Manifest. What do I want to manifest? Let me just say a story here and we can come back, okay? Way back in 2001, I was asked to write a book. I had an agreement to write a book only if I could write what I wanted, and it was published the way I wanted to write. It was written in a year. I found it fascinating. The editor read it, bless his heart. He said, Alan, I think you're saying things, although honest, but it's not going to really serve you to say these things. I mean, you can't say that enlightenment is a lie. You can't say that being in the moment is often the source of emotional, spiritual paralysis. It just doesn't fly. These are very conventionally well-accepted belief systems. You as a former monk and a Buddhist, you just can't be a Noam Chomsky and expect to have a following within the Dharma world. And I'm going like, this is not the agreement. And I said, okay, if that's what you feel, fair enough. I don't want to humiliate you as a publisher or to create controversy. I want to work with you. But if that's the issue and you want me to remove those parts of the book, I'm going to remove 100 pages of all the spiritually incorrect stuff. And so I took it all out. The book Instinct for Freedom is the result of that 100-page extraction. And I deneutered my memoir for the sake of embodying the commercial, psychological, spiritual needs of the collective conformity of mainstream spiritual elitism in America 2001 to 2003. Do I regret that? No. Why? Because the very advice that I'm sharing right now with all of us, I had to listen to for the first time. I said, how can I do this with integrity? I went on a very expensive book tour from about 12 cities. To be very frank with you, I was on very high profile media, TV, newspapers and things. But I was in bookstores, like New Age bookstores. It was so fucking boring, it was unthinkable. Listening to like 4 or 5 people cathart about how their lives weren't working. I spent all these years in Yugoslavia during the war as a journalist in a monastery. It was like, fucking America is so dumbed down spiritually. No offense to you Americans, but it was so fucking dumbed down. It was like, get me out of here. This is the last place in the world I want to be. I'd rather be in a brothel in Paris than fucking in a New Age bookstore in LA. I still would. And so at the end of this, I was so done with being a so-called emerging Western spiritual teacher in the West after having an illustrious career prior to leaving all of that back in the 80s. But when I came back, it was like, I want no part of this shit. No offense to the New Age spiritual Buddhist scene in the West, but it's just not my thing. It's not my thing anywhere. And I don't know what my thing is, but it wasn't that. And so I was with my partner at the time. The only way that I can get clear is to do things to put into my mouth. I've already made that clear. I'm not going to repeat it. All of a sudden, we're hanging out, and it's like, oh my God, I am so not comfortable being in the West, dealing with white middle-class spiritual, psychological, commercial issues. I'm just not the one. Go see a therapist. Go see Margaret. And don't be doing that anymore. I was really patient listening to that, I tell you. No, don't say it. Don't say it.
You said to me, you said to all of us, say what you want. You know, ask a question. This is a safe place to
It is
be.
safe. We just had a
It's
safe
not,
communication.
Because you're talking about states of consciousness. You're talking about emotions. So am
I feel judged
but
now.
you've
I feel judged.
You judged me.
I didn't judge you. You judged me judging you. I just was honest.
So was I.
So was I.
You didn't like it. You
I didn't
decided
like what you
to
said.
go
You're
on
right.
it. Exactly.
That's
But
not
you
unsafety.
said that I could share if I wanted
And you did
to.
share it.
But then you dissed me.
I didn't diss it. I just was honest.
Ah,
Dissing is your word.
no, okay. You
Honest is
weren't
a beautiful
exactly-
state of
You
mind.
weren't willing to even converse.
Well, not in the terms that you wanted.
So what is your terms? For
You've been
all of us
6
to
days
share?
here sharing in my generosity, me sharing endlessly about beautification of the mind. You can see it on tape. There's 30 hours of me talking.
Beautiful, but all I'm saying
How
is
much more
it's
do I have to
safe,
say?
it's safe. And if we're able to share, we're able to share. And if we're able to ask a
Okay, you're right.
question- Thank you.
Namaste. You're right, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we need to have a date together.
I'm done.
We need to get to know each other, actually.
I'm
We
done.
know each other. Yeah, we do.
I get into things like appropriateness, skillfulness, timing, all kinds of things like that. But anyway, so if I apologize for extending myself into being something other than honest. But I'm just not comfortable with psychobabble. Sorry.
It's states of consciousness.
For you it
It's
is. I
emotion.
hear it through the filter of psychology, and I'm really not comfortable with that. That's the only thing.
But that's
and I
not
hear-
fair. It's a projection.
It's fair for you because you're a psychotherapist who studied Tantra. For me, I am not comfortable with psychotherapy.
Maybe I've changed, and we haven't had this conversation.
Yeah, but I
To
was
know where
listening.
stand
I was
for.
listening to the way in which I was hearing it, and it's like outrage and all the various things of who did what to who, and the psychotherapeutic molding of patterns and events and people is not where I'm hanging.
No, it was my personal.
I heard that.
opinion.
I heard that.
Not a psychotherapeutic. It was my personal.
Okay, then.
And I'm just saying, sometimes we can label. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
We label things, and then we don't allow somebody with an opinion that might be different to psychotherapy.
I allowed it. You spoke it. It was heard. It's on tape, broadcast around the world.
Yeah.
That's a lot of allowance.
It was just okay. We'll talk again about this.
Yeah, no, I'm done talking about it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to continue having to defend 30 hours of presentation that's really difficult to do, especially when I feel that the personal relationship I have with Nina is so refined in terms of ongoing issues that it wasn't really asking personally for a deeper issue of like adding advice to it. That's all. I think that was more the issue that I had.
Okay.
You know, because I know her situation very intimately well, and maybe you do too, but it's really sensitive. Really, really sensitive. I don't want to say what that is, but I didn't particularly feel that that kind of, for me, that kind of advice would be supportive. You can ask her though.
No, that's okay. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So, and I can't listen any more intimately to the body language of my body, and I go like, I don't know what else to respond to, but it felt like more of your need than the need for her, for me.
Which I feel would
And
have been okay.
Yeah,
anyway.
and I will say this another thing too about safety, is safety is not a black and white thing. And I can't control ultimately how you feel inside, or anyone. And I'm so outspoken about what I feel is true, especially in something sensitive where there's violence involved.
Yeah, I guess I'm just open to different forms of communication. How we communicate. The language is what was an issue for me here. That's
Yeah, okay. So we can agree to move on?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So where was I?
You were about to ask if anybody else has a question.
No, I wasn't about to do that. I was in the middle of a story, I think. Yeah, about a book that I had written and taken out 100 pages.
You referred to me, that's why I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
When you say you took out 100 pages, those 100 pages became the other book.
No,
Or they were
no,
published.
no, that's
Right.
not what happened.
I thought you said when you took out the 100 pages, that became the book of what the title now.
No, that's not the
The
story.
remaining was the book you published.
No, that's not the story. No, I know the story very well. I've told it for 22 years. That's not the story.
But you did say that
Let
you
me
took
tell
out-
the story.
You took out the 110 pages or something.
That I said, I took out the 100 pages.
And that
No,
was
I'll get into
discarded.
that.
That was
Let me
discarded.
continue,
Okay.
please. I'll get into what the story is. The story is that I took out the 100 pages and I'd ingested something, and that illuminated to me the life that I didn't want to live in relationship to the life that I wanted to live. That's more of my point. And I didn't know exactly what it is that I could do, but I wanted to be in an area where the confinement of dialogue wasn't so fucking narrow, based upon people's idea of psychology, spirituality, and the Dharma. This is a living example of the confinement of that for me. And I thought of myself in the past, what do I want to do? I want to be on a stage. There people pay money, they dress up, and they learn to see things as revealing things about themselves rather than to heckle the performer, or the protocol of things like safety and trust and all the reciprocities. No matter how much you give in the spiritual scene, it's often perceived as not enough. Audiences want to be right, not any offense to you. On stage, I found that you could say anything that you wanted, and generally people either cried or applauded and told their friends to come out. So I said, it's not so much what I'm saying, but where I'm saying it. In Paradiso, I could say anything I wanted. In workshops and retreats, I had to stay very narrow and confined, and the people that often came out had expectations or aren't unrecognized about trying to fit into their existing paradigms of commercial success and emotional success. And if you didn't fit into those things pretty well, you were vilified, judged, or berated, or scapegoated. Does that make sense? When I shifted from being a really skilled Buddhist meditation teacher into introducing the word authenticity, I was severely judged and lost half of the people that were devoted to me. They wanted me to be a Buddhist. So I said to my friend, I want to perform. I want to get onto a stage. I had no training. So I went down to the most prominent theater in Vancouver that I wanted to be on, and I walked into this thing. I'll end with this story, we'll take a break. And the manager was there. He said, who are you? I said, I'd like to be here and look at this beautiful theater. 500 seats, 3 stories, built about 100 years ago. And he said, the door's open, go on the stage and hang out. And I went there and looked at this place with 500 seats in this incredibly elegant environment. And I acted like a 6-year-old inside of my heart. Who in the hell could I be with? Who would come out to hear me and speak? What would I say to people dressed up, paying $50 to $100 for a ticket? And how do you get them to even come out? And I just stood there in front of this microphone and imagined U Parle in Burma, who went to prison for 6 years for simply speaking his mind. And although the story isn't necessarily that fluent at the moment, I walked out believing that there was no chance in hell that I could do that. And better go back and eat spiritual retreats and deal with psychologists and deal with the things that I had to deal with than to try to venture into a new world of the spoken word. So as I was leaving, the manager-owner said to me, "What did you think?" And I said, "It's really a beautiful theater, and thank you." He says, "What do you do?" And I looked at him for a long couple of seconds, and I didn't want to tell him what I did, which was to be a meditation teacher or a spiritual guide. And so I overtly lied to him. And I told him that I am a spoken word comedian. He said, "Oh my goodness, you are you? What do you do?" And I knew it was the wrong thing to have said because I couldn't back it up under any circumstances. And I said, "I'm writing a new show, furthering the lie." And he goes, "Oh, really? What is it that you're writing?" Another total lie. And I made up a lie on the spot. I said, "I'm writing a new show." I used the word new as if I was seasoned. A new show called Spiritually Incorrect. He said, "That's amazing. When will it be done?" I said, "Not too long, maybe a few months." Continuing just to really lie overtly. He said, "Would you like to perform it here?" And I went, "Oh my God, there's no way of getting out of this except..." And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, for sure." Knowing that the theater was really hard to book. And he says, "Wow, come into my office and we'll book the premiere." And I'm going like, holy fuck, how to get out of this thing? And so we sat down. He said, "What night of the week do you want to do it?" And I said, "The only way to get out of this would be to choose a Saturday night because there's no chance a Saturday night would be free." And he looked into his diary and it was October, November, January, February. I'm starting to breathe easier. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September 29th. He had one nearly 2 years out. And he said, "Would you like to book this?" And I said, "Yeah, of course," feeling that I could just cancel. Anyway, long story short, those were those most exciting 2 years of my life in preparation for that. And from that particular date, 280 shows that I produced on my own with volunteers in 60 countries, never doing the same show twice, all paid, most of them sold out, and I chose one particular vocation, which was never to repeat myself and to risk being out there spontaneously and saying anything I fucking wanted on the terms of what felt right. And so that was the birth of my artistic passion, was through lying and taking a risk to really feel confronted by the forms I was stuck in, Buddhism, enlightenment, and they became the source of satire. Psychology became a huge one for me. Very much based on John Hillman, 100 years of psychotherapy, and the world is getting worse as a result of it. And so that's a little bit of how it started. How are you doing? You okay? Any questions you want to talk about? Josh?
Actually, is it cool if I ask two? I think one would be real quick and the other one would be kind of follow.
Say again?
Can I ask two? One's real quick, I think the other one...
Start with the quick one.
Okay, so the real quick one, because you've mentioned before, the consumption of hallucinogens and its ability to bring clarity.
May I invite a question that's really personal to you?
Yeah.
And if you could say it really concisely, because we're really at the end.
So I used to use hallucinogens a fuck ton.
Best not to talk about this publicly.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out if there's a particular time to use it again. I haven't for years. So I'm trying to figure out, because I do believe the meditation is a more stable way to do it, but every once in a while I'm like, hey.
Privately, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Better. If you can wait then, I'll be happy to. Other questions or things? Please.
I'll try to explain the condition. I call it restlessness.
You couldn't rest yesterday.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Restlessness.
Restlessness, yes.
Yeah. Kind of not allowing yourself to rest and be in peace. Always wanting to do more. And if you allow to rest, you feel guilty. So,
What to do about rest?
know this condition, where this come from, or how to?
It's a little bit foreign for me because I just sort of do what I want to do when I want to do it. If I need to rest, I'm very nifty at lying down anywhere in the world, just about even on park benches or the grass, and just close my eyes and meditate. What do you need to rest from?
Actions, thoughts.
Thoughts. Knowing how to allow dissonant thoughts to minimize their impact on you. Knowing things that you want to experience, knowing things that you want to let go of, knowing things that you want to connect to, that's the mark of a more mindfully aware person. It's a long journey to evolve the thoughts that you want to have in your own mind. That comes from, for me, shaping speech and actions that support the evolution of those thoughts. If I want to write a book or a passage or a poem or a text, I'm choosing what to write. If I want to write the interior of my mind, there's a way to write that in a more beautiful way than the way of just letting random thoughts arise. So I'm into seizing my life in the Dana, Sila, Bhavana category. The more that I beautify states of mind, the more that I can reflect upon that, the more thoughts I have of being accomplished in that area. And so I find that when I disengage from people who did what or didn't do, events that happened that should or shouldn't happen, outcomes that I expect that didn't happen, which are all very human, but the more that I disconnect from that and stay back to Dana, Sila, Bhavana, I'm evolving through the practice of giving an ethical intelligence and beautiful states of consciousness, thoughts that reflect those actions. Lifelong journey. Reading things that inspire you, listening to things from people that inspire you, listening to music that touches your heart, taking care of your body and your mind that's elegant in beauty. You can reflect at the end of the day, I did a beautiful thing today. I beautified my diet, I was generous in my spirit. I can reflect upon the process of my Dana, Sila, Bhavana. Dharma literacy, like that. If you need to reflect on how to relax, come to Bali, right? I don't know any more than that. You're lucky. You're in a relationship. You've got work that you love. You know, you're physically vital. There's so many things to reflect upon that could easily disappear. I like water. Being in water really helps me chill and open. I like being around people who are very familiar in the emotional, dharmic level of my life. I like that level of communion with someone. And I'm getting better at how to stay further and further away from less of those refinements. That kind of thing. It's not a very big answer, but an attempt. What time is it?
It's 11. 11.
It's 12?
11.
11.
Yes.
More questions? Take your time, please. And if I could invite, really, what is the question, if you could just...
First of all, I don't know where you stand about why certain things happen in our lives.
May I invite questions that are more about you than about me?
Yeah, it's about.
Actually, exclusively about you and nothing about me.
Yeah. So the concrete question is, when do I know? Okay, this the universe sent to me, and I have to work with this, or it's really something that no, I don't want this for myself. So this is where I say no.
What don't you want?
Sorry.
What don't you?
To deal with certain situation or yeah.
You and me together.
Sorry.
No, I understand. I understand. I mean, I think there's something very healthy in not wanting to deal with certain things. To know what you don't want to deal with, I think is really appropriate.
Yeah.
I'd cultivate it.
This is part of it. The issue is a lot of the times I don't know what I really want. So
Yeah, that I
have
can't help you
troubles.
there. I can't. Just it. See, I've never had that trouble.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, I've never had that trouble, nor do I have people in my life who have that issue. Not to say that what you're saying is less than. I've always known strongly that today had passion involved in it. And even if it was drugs or even if it was alcohol, I had passion for them. I'm just really electrified with wanting to do. But when it came time to zero in on things, it became very, very sacred and powerful. I woke up every day in Zagreb with unthinkable conviction. I wake up as a writer writing. I don't have writer's fatigue. There's not enough time in the day for me to manifest what I really want to do. That kind of thing. So, what do you want to do that you're not doing?
That's the question.
So may I ask you to take a few minutes to write down some things that you think you might want to do, or you're just shaking your head, I don't have any clue?
Yeah, not really.
No clue.
Like I have a lot of things that I love to do, but I feel that something is still missing.
Something's missing.
Yeah, that there's something bigger, higher, or whatever you want to call it, but there's something more to it.
Well, do you see inside of yourself right now that you are a woman? Yeah.
Yes.
And you see that we're in a group of people here in Ubud, clear. And do you feel that you are dependent on your oxygen to be alive?
Sure.
Yeah. And do you feel like I do that there's no guarantee that we'll be alive tomorrow?
Yes.
Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you just don't know, do we? There's a likelihood that we will, but we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I know, we're going to die at some point, right? I would write down some of these reflections that give you a chance to reflect upon life and let them be integrated into your heart. And slowly through that process of, not taking tomorrow for granted. It's very difficult to see what you don't see, feel what you don't feel. Where are some of the risks that you could take to discover something or do something that you may want to do that you haven't done. You know, going to areas that are challenging rather than comfortable sometimes can evoke. I know when I went to Calcutta when I was 25, my mind was shocked to see the level of poverty.
I don't think this is a problem for me. I'm constantly stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. So there you go. You be your own best guide. That's the only thing I could really say. Good luck.
Thank you.
Duncan?
Take a massive subject and try and refine it to one question. In your experience, do you now believe that to achieve these states is much easier when nutrition is in a good place? Like the fuel that people are eating, does that make a big difference in how easy it is to cultivate beautiful thoughts, and opposed to dwelling on
Is it
the language?
is it easier where?
When nutrition,
Nutrition.
fuel, the things
Like
people are eating,
physical
you see it
nutrition.
directly relating to the language people.
Not ultimately dependent, but it certainly helps.
A good place to start.
But a lot of people eat really beautiful, organic, nutritious food that just develop their ego. I don't know that because you eat really beautiful food, you become a beautiful mind.
It was more the opposite. Have you seen people potentially living in poverty, eating the worst foods,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
still having?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the Dharma, is that it's not dependent on food or location. In fact, you see some amazingly beautiful things with people who don't have things that we have. I think that's one of the great rare gifts in life, that some of the best monasteries are in refugee camps in areas of deprivation, places that have been dominated by extreme violence. People who have nothing have been taken to their hearts, that kind of thing. In Burma, you'll see that. You'll see, against all odds, people have done things that blow your mind. They take refuge in beautiful states of mind, a lot of them. And there's no matter how much you talk about it, it's not going to change it except you shift the emotion. And that's one of the greatest things I've learned in the Burmese Buddhist tradition, is to occupy the state of consciousness and take it off the person, take it off the food, take it off who did what to whom, and do the most reliable, easy thing imaginable, is to shift alliances from what happened and how it happened, and if it could occur, what didn't happen well enough, and go straight to how to make good on the promise of your Dharma. The Buddhang Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. I take refuge in Dhamma. I've never seen anything more powerful than that nutrient. To shift on the spot, in the moment, and occupy what you want here and now. That food is priceless and so vital that I find it is the most reliable place for me. Unless I have some really radical other thing going on, that you and I are in this together. And that's very, very rare. So that's where I would go with that. I would reorient what is nutritious, what is food, and take time out of it so that immediacy becomes, I feed myself because I breathe. And breathing the Dharma is the most vitalizing of all nutrients. And if I'm gifted enough to have shelter and clothing and even food, much less nutritious food, how rare that is. But be very watchful of the ideal location of I mean, I live in Vancouver. I've been living there, and you hardly see any pollution. You hardly see any everything is ordered. Whole Foods is the whole city. Everything is done well. But the pretense is really thicker than clay a lot of the times. The spiritual materialism, people who've so lived outside into the forms that you almost need a spiritual gas mask not to suffocate from how big egos are there. Everything is designer. All roads lead back to something to do with Indian or Hindu. Mindfulness is ubiquitous even among embryonic fetuses. Everything is connected to something spiritual. And it's just almost too much. So the exaggeration of that other is like, you just really want to throw a little bit of a theme park of Calcutta into downtown Vancouver so that people could at least pay a few dollars to see what other people live like. Be very watchful of anything to do with the right food, ultimately, and just begin to breathe and eat and drink as much as humanly possible, especially in this time where bargaining with people and time is just over. We're going to die. We're in an extinction moment. And that's why I think becoming very, very radicalized in our Dharma is the only resilience I see left. I was recently reading in the paper about a year ago, I said this here in Java, that incredibly famous story of a tsunami. Did you read about that? Where this couple had this great rock band come out and play at their wedding on the beach. 500 guests, all just dressed up and having the greatest of times. And the tsunami warning was off, and this tsunami came up behind them, and totally in silence out of nowhere, and rose up out of flatness to this 6-foot-high wave and just washed everyone into their next existential existence. And in a way, that's happening anyway, but now with the data and the science of what we're living with children telling us about, hey, you guys, it may very well be that you have to listen to us on how to do it. Your story is so 2 days ago that it's not about working it out. It's about occupying timeless dharmic moments of whatever it is right here and right now. Eat that food, because we're in the down end game. And I think it's irresponsible not to talk about those things today. So if there's a way to increase the urgency of our applied breathing of Dhamma in beautiful states, I'm a believer that I'm in the age right now where I could die mid-breath. And then a couple of minutes from now is 6 to 8 years. 10 years, people are yelling in our ear, just forget it, I want you to panic. Greta Thunberg is telling you, I want you to panic. Get over your story is her message. The girl out of Sweden about extinction and about Extinction Rebellion, get over your story. We're going to die if we don't change things. And the changing thing is optimistic. So look at the science, look at the data, whatever you need to do to increase the Sanvega. I think it really comes very clear to us on day 6 here as we leave, what's the truth of our circumstances, the urgency of what we need to do, could do, to really live in a more heightened sense of wakefulness with each other, because it's no longer business as usual. No longer. That's why I keep reiterating, I'm walking on. I'm walking this way from society. I want to retreat into my little nest and do what I can with the few people I let in, where there is nothing but harmony. I want no intentional community of having to work it out. I want a few people in a very modest way, where the Dharma is so active, so alive, that we cry together. We dance together, we kiss together. There's nothing to work out anymore. So I would just let your truth usurp everyone else's truth, but do the research. What can we do at this point with our intelligences to elevate the status of our understanding of the power of immediacy? Why would I ever bring in a minute ago to this moment now? Why would I want to live with regret? Why would I not want to use my voice in any way I wanted to use it? So, what is your Dharma? How do you drink it, breathe it, and eat it? Know that. My teacher emphasized in Burma over and over again, to know your mind, to know your Dharma as you breathe is the most important thing in your life. And when he said that, days later, dead. They all die. You die, I die. Imagine if we were so connected to a breath right now that it was living and breathing death. That'd be amazing. That's the psychedelic. So thank you for thank you for coming to Burma. One last question before we end. Susan?
Hello. My sister and her ex-husband have 3 children, my niece and nephews. It is a very dysfunctional microcosm that they exist within. And I'm curious to know how to be with those children in a way that does not overstep my boundary as not being a parent, but being supportive of them in recognizing that there is more to their life and their reality than what it is that they've been subjected to, while honoring the integrity of the relationship that I share with my sister and respect as a woman.
I hear skillfulness, appropriateness, timing, self-integrity, compassion, all these concerns. If I were your sister, I'd simply want to be prioritized to what your intentions, your thoughts are, your concerns, and to take her to that place where you can talk about it and get her idea, get her more familiar with your feelings, and then know that you have every right in the world as sister, as surrogate mother, as ally of the soul, to be skillful both in respect of your sister, at the same time prioritize the sanity and the well-being of other life, and to find skillful means and timing and tone and language and all the things that we do to indirectly influence shared space in ways that succeed in the elevation of our hope. So all those things, map them out on a piece of paper, get them connected to something, and implement them, and know that ultimately your intention is really for the well-being of these precious children. That's a very beautiful compassion. Normally things could either be in collusion with the adult or in co-abusers of the space. So what you're doing is quite beautiful. I'd ask you, what would you like to do? How would you like to do it? When would you like to do it? And to make some notes about that and go to the next level. Because you brought it up as a concern, you want to be skillful in it. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? And how do you want to do it? Do you have some sense of that? Yeah. I quite like people who are involved in my daughter's life. I hope that they support her in the evolution of her best interest, like what's in the best interest of the children. I know in the court system that's the only thing that matters, is what's in the best interest of the children. So you can kind of take that primordial position of what's in the best interest of the children and just keep checking in with them all and just keep trusting that your heart is in the right place and that it's a huge gift. Very much like the blind woman, the blind girl being supported by the outsider, being skillful not to upset the quo of the religion and the family, at the same time not giving up on the compassion to support this girl's sanity. So that's a good role model for me. Caring need not be too protected. If you see something that's not right, I would make it right without making someone overtly wrong. But there's nothing wrong with being steadfast in boundaries like that kind of thing. And also in our own connection, if you want to stay connected to that, I'll be happy to support you in the evolution of that expression. Okay, it's about 11:20 at the moment. Take about 10 minutes to hang. We're going to come back and sit before lunch at 11:30. Thank you.